Senator from South Carolina.
I would like to thank Senator Scott for those very eloquent words on behalf of my state and the leadership he's provided since this horrible tragedy a year ago. So what can I add? Just remind people when they ask the young man why he did it, his goal was to start a race war. Well, he failed miserably. Quite the opposite happened in my state. I've never quite seen anything like it. I'm 60 years old, and we've had our fair share of problems in South Carolina and still do. But churches were full all over the state, black, white, rich, poor, trying to come together and heal each other. So this young man's dream of starting a race war, well, pal, you're a miserable failure. I'm sure this guy who attacked the nightclub in Orlando wanted to break our will and try to get us to cow to a radical form of religion. Well, you're not going to break our will. We're all going to stand behind the folks in Orlando and come together as a nation the best we can. Senator Scott said that it's hard to understand the hate that someone has to do what these two people did. What blows my mind is that you could go in and sit in a Bible study for an hour, be welcomed in off the street, discuss the Word of God, and get up and shoot the people you've been praying with. I don't know how you get there. Only God knows that. And what this man did in Orlando was beyond vicious. But here's a question that I've asked myself 1,000 times, and I'm beginning to understand the answer. Why was it different in South Carolina? We've had shootings throughout the country where people took to the streets. There were riots. Sores were exposed. Scabs were pulled off old wounds. What was it about South Carolina that was different? I promise you we're not a perfect people. I promise you under the right circumstances, what you saw in other places in the country would have happened in South Carolina. Here's the difference. We're all in such state of shock that somebody could come into a church and just randomly kill the people they prayed with. It was hard to get our heads around somebody being able to do that. But what woke us up was the way the families behaved. As Senator Scott indicated, within 48 hours of the killing, there was an arraignment of the accused. And all the family members appeared in court. Instead of taking to the streets and showing their frustration with a system that I'm sure can always be made better, that is by far from perfect, they decided to channel their grief into something constructive, not destructive. And I promise you, I could not have done this. If this had been one of my family members, I know Lindsey Graham well enough, I could not have done this. I consider myself a person of faith, but lacking when it comes to the folks at Mother Emanuel AME Church. Nadine Collier, the daughter of Miss Ethel Lance, who is 70 years old, said the following. Her voice was breaking. "You took something very precious from me. I will never talk to her again. I will never, ever hold her again. But I forgive you and have mercy on your soul." That's what's different. That's why the people of South Carolina followed her lead. She and the victims touched our heart. They appealed to our better nature. They reminded us of the humanity of what humanity is all about. It is about love and forgiveness. And politicians, we can take all the credit we want, but if these people had not done this, it would have been a different result. I could have talked, I was blue in the face. If people had chose to be angry, there is no way in hell I could have talked them out of not being angry, because they had every right to be angry. But after these families did what they did in open court, the rest of us followed behind and followed their lead. So a year later, I'm here to tell you that the reason South Carolina handled this so well, in my view, is because the people in that church charted a path for the rest of us, and we were smart enough to follow their lead. It would be nice if in the future, when we get mad at each other, here in this body and other places throughout the country, over something maybe not as important as losing a loved one, that we could slow down just for a moment and try to imagine how things would be different if we could draw upon the example of the families of the fallen. Look what we argue about. Look how we interact in America today over things not quite as significant as having your loved one gunned down. So if you really want to honor what happened in South Carolina, as an individual in a society, whenever you can, remember what the people in that church did after losing their loved one and try to follow their lead. That would be the greatest respect you could pay to the families and the greatest honor you could give to those who died for no good reason. I need to follow my own advice. There's no better feeling in the world than being petty and think of a reason why you're wronged. It feels good. But every now and then I catch myself and I go back to last year and I wake up and I realize that there is a better way. And to those who showed us that better way, I know your pain is as real as it was on the day this happened. I know you'll never get over it, but I hope you realize that your loved ones did not die in vain, because through their tragic death, you gave us, not just in South Carolina, but throughout the world, the way forward. Whether we choose it or not is up to us. You've done all you could do and then some. To the people of South Carolina, I'm proud of the way we handled this tragedy, but we've got a long way to go. This weekend will be tough throughout our state. And as we look back, let's make sure that we learn from the past and apply it to the future. If we can take the love and forgiveness and apply it in a constructive way to future problems in South Carolina, then we will have honored these victims and their families. If we go back to our petty ways, they will have died for nothing. Here's my bet. South Carolina is never going to go back, because the people at Mother Emanuel Church showed us the way. And it's up to us to follow. And I will do my best to follow their lead. To the people throughout the country who have been generous to this church, thank you. To the dollars that have been raised, it's appreciated. To the prayers and support given, it was essential. You helped us in our time of greatest need. So on behalf of the people of South Carolina, to the people of this great land, thank you for having us in your prayers and support and being for us a year ago when we needed you the most. Mr. President, I yield.